A heavy storm had swept across the valley, turning fields into raging rivers. The once calm waters had risen to terrifying heights, flooding the land. In the middle of this chaos, a young horse named Rohan found himself trapped on a small patch of land, surrounded by floodwaters. His hooves were stuck in the muddy depths, and no matter how hard he tried, he couldn't escape. As the floodwaters rose, Rohan's hope began to dwindle. He had lived a simple life with his owner, a kind farmer who had always taken care of him. But now, it felt as if the storm had taken everything: his home, his safety, and his future. The hours passed, and Rohan's strength began to fade. His breathing was shallow, and his eyes were heavy with fatigue. He had given up. That was when he heard a familiar voice. It was his owner, Hari, who had risked his life to come through the floodwaters. Despite the raging current, Hari's eyes locked onto Rohan. He waded through the flood, inching closer, his heart racing. He had never seen his horse in such a desperate situation before. "Hold on, Rohan. I'm coming for you," Hari shouted, trying to reach him. Rohan, barely able to lift his head, mustered all his remaining strength to lift his eyes to meet Hari's gaze. In that moment, something changed. A surge of hope flooded his heart. He wasn't alone. Someone cared. Hari finally reached Rohan, and with great effort, he managed to pull him free from the mud. The floodwaters continued to rise, but the bond between the two of them was stronger than the storm. Together, they fought their way through the flood, with Hari holding Rohan's head up and urging him forward. They reached a hill, where the waters couldn't reach them. Rohan collapsed on the dry ground, exhausted, but alive. Hari knelt beside him, gently stroking his mane. "You made it, buddy. You're safe now." As the rain stopped and the skies cleared, the valley began to heal. Hari and Rohan looked out over the floodwaters, knowing that they had made it through the hardest test of all, not just of strength, but of faith in each other. And just like that, Rohan got his second chance, a new beginning. His heart, once weighed down with fear and uncertainty, was now filled with hope and gratitude. The storm had passed, but the bond between the horse and his owner would last forever, a reminder that even in the most hopeless moments, there's always a second chance waiting for you. The days following the flood were slow but hopeful. Hari and Rohan, though physically exhausted, were both healing. The fields that had once been lush and green were now a muddy wasteland, but the two of them didn't mind. They had each other, and that was enough. Hari worked tirelessly to rebuild their home, fixing the fences that had been torn apart by the floodwaters. Rohan, though weak from his ordeal, stayed by his side. Every time Hari would pause for a moment of rest, Rohan would nudge him with his nose, as if to say, "We're in this together." One morning, after a week of hard work, Hari took Rohan out to the fields. The waters had finally receded, and there was a glimmer of sunlight breaking through the clouds. Hari gently loosened the reins and let Rohan wander. For the first time since the flood, the horse galloped freely across the land, his hooves pounding the earth with newfound strength. It was as if the storm had never happened. But as Rohan raced across the fields, Hari stood at the edge, watching with a smile on his face. The bond between them was more than just that of an owner and his animal. It was a partnership, a trust that had been tested by the flood. Rohan had been saved, but so had Hari. The storm had stripped away everything they had known, but it had also given them something deeper, a new beginning. Over the following months, the land slowly came back to life. The grass grew tall again, and flowers bloomed where there had once been only mud. Hari and Rohan worked side by side, planting crops, fixing fences, and rebuilding their life. The village nearby was also recovering, and people were starting to return to their homes. One day, as Rohan was grazing near the edge of the field, a little girl from the village came running up to him. Her eyes were wide with awe as she approached the horse. "Is this the horse who survived the flood?" she asked in wonder. Hari smiled warmly and nodded. "Yes, this is Rohan. He's the one who taught me that no matter how high the floodwaters rise, as long as you have hope, you'll find a way to survive." The little girl ran her fingers gently through Rohan's mane. "He's amazing," she whispered. Rohan, with his shining eyes and steady gaze, stood tall and proud. It was no longer just a horse who had survived a flood, it was a symbol of resilience, of overcoming the impossible. Word spread through the village about Rohan's survival, and people would come from miles around to hear the story of how the horse had been saved, how he had fought against the floodwaters, and how, in the end, it was love and hope that had brought him back to life. As the seasons changed, Rohan grew stronger, and his bond with Hari only deepened. They shared a special connection that no storm, no flood, could ever break. Rohan had been given a second chance at life, but in truth, it was the bond between the two of them that had saved them both. One evening, as the sun set over the valley, painting the sky in hues of orange and purple, Hari stood beside Rohan, looking out at the peaceful land. "We've come a long way, haven't we, old friend?" Hari whispered, his voice full of gratitude. Rohan, standing tall beside him, gave a soft whinny in response. It was a sound of peace, of contentment. They had weathered the storm together, and now, with the world slowly healing around them, they had a future that was brighter than ever before. And so, the story of Rohan, the horse who survived the flood, continued to inspire everyone who heard it. A story of resilience, love, and second chances, because sometimes, even when it feels like all is lost, the strength to rise again is found in the heart of those who refuse to give up. As the years passed, the bond between Hari and Rohan became a legend in the village. People would come to visit, not just to see the beautiful fields or the hard-working farmer, but to meet Rohan, the horse who had once been trapped by the flood but had fought to survive, just like his owner. The farm had flourished, and so had the village. The crops were bountiful again, and the land seemed to thrive under the care of Hari and Rohan. Yet, no matter how much they achieved, the memories of the flood always lingered in the air like a silent promise, reminding them of the strength they had discovered together. One winter, as snow began to blanket the hills and the crisp air wrapped around them like a blanket, Hari sat in his small cottage, his eyes resting on a picture of Rohan from when he had been rescued. The photograph had become a symbol of resilience in his home, proof that even in the darkest moments, hope could lead to something brighter. But it wasn't just Hari who had changed. Rohan, too, had become more than just a horse. He had become a symbol of transformation. Children would visit to hear stories of the storm, sitting around a fire while Hari told them how Rohan had shown him the true meaning of perseverance. "Rohan taught me," Hari would say, "that every storm has an end, and after it passes, there's always a new day. But we have to keep moving forward to find it." One day, a new chapter began for Rohan. Hari received an invitation to the annual village festival, where the elders had decided to honor Rohan for his bravery and spirit. The news was met with excitement across the village. They would not just celebrate a horse, but a symbol of survival, of the power to overcome the impossible. On the day of the festival, the village square was alive with music and laughter. People decorated the streets with flowers, and children ran with joy, while elders gathered to share stories of the past. Hari, dressed in his finest clothes, walked into the square with Rohan by his side. The crowd gasped in admiration as Rohan trotted forward, his mane flowing with the breeze, his eyes filled with wisdom and strength. When the mayor of the village approached the stage to present Rohan with an award, the crowd fell silent. "Today, we honor not just a horse, but a hero. A creature who faced the floodwaters with courage, a creature who showed us the power of second chances. Rohan, you've taught us all what it means to never give up." The crowd erupted in applause. Hari stood beside Rohan, his eyes filled with pride and gratitude. But as the applause echoed through the air, he knelt down and whispered softly to his horse, "We did this together, old friend." Rohan, in his quiet grace, looked at Hari with a sense of calm and knowing. It was more than just the survival of a storm, it was the strength they had found in each other. A bond that could never be broken, no matter the circumstances. From that day onward, Rohan became a living legend. Just in the village, but in the hearts of everyone who heard his story. His tale of resilience was shared across generations, teaching children, families, and communities that no matter how high the floodwaters rise, there is always a way to find dry land. And for Hari and Rohan, their story never truly ended. It was a story that would live on in the fields, in the hearts of the villagers, and in the lessons they had learned. Every time the sun set over the land, casting its warm glow over the fields, they would both stand together, silent and strong, knowing that they had conquered the storm and found their second chance. It was a reminder that, sometimes, the greatest victories are not those won on grand stages, but those quietly earned in the moments when we choose to rise, time and time again. As the years went on, the village continued to thrive, and so did Hari and Rohan. They had become inseparable, not just through hardship, but through a deep, mutual respect and love that only those who have faced life's challenges together can truly understand. Rohan had grown older, his coat now speckled with the white hairs of age, but his spirit remained as strong as the first day Hari had rescued him from the flood. One crisp autumn evening, as the leaves turned golden and the harvest season drew near, Hari sat on the porch of his small home, watching Rohan graze peacefully in the field. The sun was setting, painting the sky with soft shades of pink and purple. It was the kind of evening where everything felt just right, as if the world itself was at peace. But deep down, Hari knew that time, as it always does, was moving forward. Rohan, though still strong and spirited, was no longer the young horse who had once dashed through the floodwaters. His steps were slower now, his body more tired, and Hari couldn't help but feel a pang in his heart each time he watched his old friend. Rohan, too, seemed to sense the quiet change in the air. He would often nudge Hari's hand, as if to reassure him, and for a moment, their eyes would meet in silent understanding. They both knew that the years they had left together, though fewer than before, would be treasured even more. One day, during the village's annual harvest celebration, the old farmer sat under the large oak tree that had stood for generations. Children ran around him, laughing and playing games, but Hari's mind was elsewhere. He had watched Rohan slowly growing older, his once energetic gallop now reduced to a slow, measured walk. It wasn't the same horse he had rescued from the flood, but that was okay. Rohan had already given him more than he could have ever asked for. The celebration was in full swing when a young girl approached Hari. She had heard the stories of Rohan, of the horse who had survived the storm, and who had brought so much hope to the village. "I heard that Rohan taught you how to be brave," she said, her voice full of curiosity. Hari smiled, his eyes twinkling with emotion. "Yes, he did. But the truth is, he teaches me something new every day. He's not just a hero because of the storm he survived. He's a hero because of the way he's lived his life, his patience, his kindness, his ability to never give up. That's what makes him truly remarkable." The girl stood quietly, taking in his words. "I want to be like him," she whispered. Hari chuckled softly. "You already are. Rohan's strength comes from his heart, and I see that same strength in you." That night, as the celebration wound down and the stars glittered above, Hari stood once again beside Rohan. He reached out to stroke his mane, feeling the warmth and trust between them. The old horse nudged him gently, as if to say, "I'm still here." And then, in that quiet moment, Hari made a promise to his faithful friend. "Thank you, Rohan. For everything. For teaching me how to keep going. For showing me that no matter what life throws our way, we always have a choice, to rise again, to keep going, to keep believing." Rohan let out a soft whinny, as if he understood every word. They stood there together for a long time, watching the stars, with the knowledge that their journey together had been one of the greatest gifts either of them could ever have imagined. As the seasons changed and the years passed, Rohan's steps grew slower, but his spirit never wavered. When the time came, the village, and especially Hari, knew it was time to let go. But they also knew that Rohan had left behind a legacy of strength, love, and second chances that would never be forgotten. He had been a part of their lives, not just as a horse, but as a symbol of hope, teaching them all that no matter how high the floodwaters rise, you can always rise above them. And so, as the last chapter of Rohan's life came to a close, his story lived on. A story shared by children around campfires, passed down from generation to generation, reminding everyone who heard it that sometimes, the greatest heroes are the ones who teach us to face life's storms with courage and to never, ever give up. In the end, Rohan had not just been rescued from the flood, he had rescued all of them. And in that, he had earned his place forever in their hearts. The farm, now in full bloom, continued to prosper under the care of Hari and the memory of his loyal horse. The fields that had once been ravaged by floodwaters now stood tall and lush, as if they, too, were a testament to the enduring power of hope. And so, Rohan's second chance had become more than just a story. It had become a way of life. Here's a scene-by-scene prompt for generating an image that touches the heart.